Oh my god, what am I doing? Can you trust CNN? Fox? Anybody? Fake news! Fake news, fake news, fake news. Everywhere. Hi, welcome to my channel, Just Thinking Out Loud. My name is Desi-Rae. I just wanted to make a video pointing out how biased mainstream news sources are and encouraging people to be aware when they are listening or watching or reading content, particularly political content, because I am sick of the intolerance. The first thing to note is that when someone is presenting an issue and they've picked a side, that's already biased. Almost everybody is biased, and that's fine. But most of the times when people talk, they don't acknowledge it, or they don't say who they support. They just talk and say things as if they're fact. And then there's the use of what are called literary devices, such as imagery, hyperbole, euphemism, analogies, tone, like using negative adjectives to describe something or someone, rather than just stating what is being described and letting it stand as is. I think imagery in particular is powerful. That's when you create a scene. So you could say, oh, it's a sunny day, and when Trump came into town, it's a gloomy day for New York or whatever. These things are really simple, but this is just a reminder of when you're consuming news. Things like imagery really evoke certain reactions in us because they take us to a particular scene or a particular situation, and we're very visual. Like, our visual cues tell us how to feel a lot, and so it's like an instant association with something. So you can feel really cold, and that makes you feel threatened in some way. Using language that brings up imagery ingrained in the human psyche, like gloom or darkness or predatory things, brings up a lot of emotions. There are also things like adjectives, negative adjectives in particular, or positive adjectives. Now, adjectives can actually be accurate, but the thing is that someone else is describing something to you while you could just look at it and decide for yourself how you want to describe it. Loaded adjectives, either negative or positive, and associating images or drawing analogies to things that are really dark or really positive, or comparing things to historical injustices to bring up the feelings as if someone is currently experiencing that historical injustice. That's all introducing bias into a story that you are reading or hearing, and it's not the facts. All of these things will influence the tone of a piece, and that's going to leave you with a feeling. And the important thing is the feeling that you are being left with, because that can be completely and totally manipulated, even though there's an underlying objective truth to a story. Neutral is boring, but it is the most fair. So the funny thing is that when I was in school, in high school in Jamaica, in my literature class, these are things we focused on to define what is an unbiased and a biased news source, and whether or not it could be trusted, or if it was credible. That's the word that was used. Is this a credible news source? And as far as I can tell, almost no news source anywhere, I think, honestly, especially in the US, I can't talk for other countries, even though it's probably the same right now, it's totally not credible. And maybe it's impossible for things to actually be credible and unbiased, but the point is that that bias is not stated up front. Things don't have to be precise, such as in a scientific paper, but if they're not neutral, there's something else. There's the fact that you need to give direct quotes versus paraphrasing what someone said. I was just reading up on Roy Moore, for example. This is not whatsoever any endorsement of the person, but it's just detailing what is a biased and unbiased report and encouraging people to read between the lines. I was reading some left-based news source, and they were saying that Roy Moore referred to Native Americans and Asian Americans as reds and yellows, and expressing nostalgia for a time when slavery was legal in the United States and decent human beings were outraged. So where were the actual quotations, and why didn't I immediately see them? Why can't I see the actual quotations in context? When you're talking about these things, you need to put it there, and you need to put it there, and then afterwards you put your analysis. And that's the point. They don't put the actual thing and then put their analysis. They just put their analysis in there from the get-go. That's their opinion. And then there's news that doesn't just present facts in a certain way, but doesn't present facts at all. So not just bias that isn't up front, but fake news. But you can't know it if you don't go and do your own research. This may mean twisting information or omitting information or straight up making up information. The point is, you really shouldn't rely on other people, and in many ways you don't have to in this day and age. Research is how you go about learning about a topic. I'm sure many of you already know, but a primary source is not the same as a secondary source. I was just giving you that example about the quotations. I'm sick, excuse me. Another example is I kept hearing all of this stuff about Donald Trump being racist and sexist and anti-everything that didn't look like him physically, or even about Hillary, even though it was mostly positive about her being crooked or racist. Honestly, it was mostly positive things about being for everyone and everything and for women, etc. But none of that compares to going to find original footage and original text, or when there was some bill passed where they were saying that Donald Trump was allowing the invasion of an immigrant's privacy. I had to go find some really long document. I don't remember exactly what it was. I was trying to remember, but I can't remember. And find the actual paragraph that they drew that conclusion from to get proper clarity. It felt like this big waste of my time, but I knew if I really wanted to understand, I knew I can't trust the media. I can't. So I only really did that because a friend from Jamaica was asking me about it, and I told her, well, they portray everything about him as bad, so let's both go read this thing for ourselves. For a more recent example, when Romer was saying the US was better during the times of slavery, there was more to the statement than just that. I know so much that I can't trust what other people tell me, especially at this time in the US. So I always have to go hunt and dig to find original statements, original stories, or specific incidents that supposedly define a person's character. I have to see the original sources without someone else telling me how to view it. That's the difference between thinking for yourself and having others think for you. Someone may be telling you about something that happened, but it's their perspective. I know most thought isn't original, but you need to at least look at the original thing that inspired the opinion. If you wind up having the same opinion as someone else, that's okay. And then when you hear another opinion, that allows you to just see the possibility of branching off into another perspective. So for those political examples generally, if I learn about them on my own and in full context, I get a different picture than the one I was originally shown. And a different picture, imagery being the key word here, gives me a different feeling. And I understand that people are operating based on the image that comes up in their mind, which may not be the same image that comes up in someone else's mind. I also try really hard to refrain from having an opinion about things that I haven't been able to do that research in. In some ways, that makes it kind of hard to keep up with politics, and I do give some things the benefit of the doubt and let someone else think for me because I don't have the time. But I am aware I'm doing that, and I do my best to not do that for really important stuff. Now, people don't like to watch boring things, so journalists like to give drama to a story to make it something we can connect to, and it sort of requires doing these things that I'm talking about that creates bias. But then this is not the same thing as just giving news, and that distinction is not being made by many news outlets. So I just want you guys to think about these things. I know I talked kind of fast through that. Sorry, I'm really sick and I had to pause a million times because I kept coughing. Thanks for watching my video. I'll talk to you soon. Don't forget to donate at justthinkingoutloud.tv/donate. Also, subscribe if you haven't already. Have a good day. Goodbye.